Japanese Maple Day. Who loves Japanese maples? I'm raising both my hands. This is always one of my favorite classes. Probably my first plant addiction back in high school was Japanese maples, and it's gotten worse from there. So hopefully you're not quite as bad as me, but my wife says if I bring home another maple, well, anyway. So we're out of room, but then I just buy more pots. That's okay, isn't it? If you're out of room, you can just buy another maple and then buy another pot to plant it in. You can always find somewhere for a pot. That's what I say. So hopefully we'll get you through some maples today. I tried to pick out some, we carry. You can look on our website. The list is on there, information's on there, pictures of the vast majority on there. We've got, well, that's $5 cell phone fine. No, I'm just kidding. We've got the list posted in the Maple House over there too, to kind of give you an idea what we carry. This time of year is probably pretty close to maximum selection. There's a couple things still coming in. If we don't have it, leave your name on the wish list. We'll try to find it for you. But I think you can see a little sampling, lots of different colors, lots of different textures, lots of different growth habits. We have sun, we have shade, we have part, we do pots, we got low, we got huge, we got everything in between. So there's quite a bit of maples. We will always carry a substantial selection here. We keep most of them out all around the property because they're everywhere this time of year. There's quite a bit of shady ones in our shade area on display, but that's not all of them. There's still more shade ones over in the Maple House as well. So eventually we get them all in one area, but right now you can ask. We'll have to go on the maple hunt. Everything's finally leafed out, so it's a little bit easier to see, and that should also give you an idea. Spring color, I think a lot of times is surprisingly as nice as fall color. So a lot of these maples are really noted for 3 seasons of interest. That's why I call it the tree for all seasons. Something in spring, something different in summer, different color in fall. Then we can add on some bark, nice structure, some different silhouettes and things that look nice in the winter. So really, I think an excellent tree for all 4 seasons, okay? So this always starts to me with picking the right plant for the right place. We want to show you guys success. We need to ask, how much sun do you get? When is the time of the day? Is it shade? Is it an understory tree? Is it getting cooked all afternoon? There's maples for all those locations, but we really need to decipher what you need for yours. So sun is going to be phase 1. Phase 2 is always going to be drainage. I'm always brutally honest. There's one kiss of death for Japanese maples, and that is bad drainage. If I have a swampy area, clay, I walk out in the winter, it's squishy, I'm trying to grow it there, you're probably not going to be able to grow it there. I'm going to be brutally honest. That's the one thing I don't have a fix for. I can't sell you a spray to fix it. There is nothing to do except don't plant a tree there. That was that for an easy answer. I have a place in Everett, been there 20 years. This is 20 years ago, but I think my wife started her anger with the gardening at that point. Like, you wasted like $600 on coral bark maples for the spot in front of the kitchen window, because I'll dig a bigger crater, I'll get the water out of there. Nope, next year, dead again. Dead again. Finally, 3 strikes, I'm out. Go find something else. There's some great plants that will take heavier soil, maybe some bad drainage. Japanese maples is not one of them, okay? So we gotta be really careful with drainage. A lot of times in the landscape, when I'm thinking about planting one, I would never plant it on an anthill. I'm not saying that, but a lot of times if we just raise it above grade a little bit and have kind of a gentle berm, that highlights the tree to me a little bit. I don't like flat landscape beds. I like a little bit of contour as we go through. That might help you a little bit, but raising it up 6 inches is not going to fix the problem if I have a hard pan layer down 18 inches into the soil. It's going to grow for a few years. It's going to root out. It's going to sit in water in the winter. That's called verticillium wilt is the problem. It attacks the root system, and we're done. Like I said, there's no cure. If you have a maple, a lot of people this time of year call me, because if I had a maple and you call or send a picture and say, I don't know what's going on, I've had this tree for 7 years. This year, 2/3 of it leafed out, one big branch tried to, it looks like somebody lit a match to it. There's your verticillium wilt right there in a nutshell. So it takes one chunk a year. Sometimes the whole tree goes by, but it almost looks like it's dry when you know full well there's no way anything is dry that's been in the ground here coming out of winter. So typically it will happen over the winter, shows up in the spring, one branch goes, another one goes, eventually you'll probably lose the tree, okay? I can't tell you if you have it or not, except for a soil test, where I always tell people to cut a branch And if I have a branch, say inch caliper, and I look at the cross section, I'm always going to see like a dark brown black bullseye in there. It looks a little different. That just says where the vascular is, where the fungus is traveling through the vascular system. We cut it off. We sterilize our pruners or saw before we go touch another tree. Okay, we want to make sure we don't take that from plant to plant to plant. All right.
You say another tree, you mean another Japanese maple or any tree?
I would always sterilize my pruners before I went to any other tree, but for sure any other maple. You got it. Okay, so planting. If I'm going to amend my soil when I plant a tree in there, like I mentioned, a little bit of a berm. I get some compost. Maybe I mix about 1/3 compost with 2/3 of my native dirt. That's going to help with the drainage, help with nutrition. I'll have a little happier plant that way. Dig a good sized hole. You're going to find maples in cans here. You're also going to find some maples growing in burlap sacks. Okay, the burlap is a heavier soil. You're going to go, well, he told me not to grow it in heavy soil, and here it is. But that's how we do field grown maples. We pop it in the ground, off it roots out, and here we go for another season. If I buy a container maple, I'm going to simply, most of these won't need it, but I'm going to simply take it out of the pot. Anybody know, have a hori knife or a little Velcro, you know, a little pruner tip? I usually just open up my pruner blade. I'm just going to lightly score the outside of that, sometimes a little bit in the bottom. I'm not going to rip it apart. I don't want to destroy the tree, but I want to let it know you don't have to grow in a circle anymore. You can go ahead and get into the native dirt. If we buy a burlap specimen, do not take the burlap off. I'm going to make everybody repeat after me. Do not take the burlap off. And that's not just with maples, it's with all plants. People take burlap off, untie it, they think it needs to go, they pick up the tree, they set it in their hole. If that root ball cracks at all, you're going to call me in 3, 4, 5, 6 months and say my tree died. So we need to be very careful. Set it in there gently, backfill the hole, get everything done. The last thing I do is just cut that twine away from the trunk and either peel it to the sides, or I usually take my pruner or my knife and just cut the excess off. The sides and the bottom are gone, you know, by the end of this year. They rot away. The collar will not, and we do not want that girdling into the bark. I've seen old trees, you see like a little skinny stem and then a fat trunk. It's because somebody left that string, little tourniquet on there, tied on for too long. So we take it off the top once it's in, but we don't take it off and throw it in the hole, okay? Now, this is probably not the easiest time to maybe talk about pruning with maples, but if I'm going to mention a couple things. So does everyone know when I say lace leaf maple? I've got a couple out front here. This is Orangeola. This is, you can meet Otto. This is Mr. Otto's dissectum. So I have a plant that grows up and cascades back down, right? I think most Northwest landscapes have a really nice lace leaf maple. That's a really good staple plant for all of us to use. It's going to be really hard to dive into an old lace leaf maple in the growing season and figure out where to prune it. If I have to, I can temporarily cut up some branches to get it off the lawn or get it off a shrub or something. But if I'm going to dive into a plant like that, that's winter. So I'm going to pick it hopefully a decent day, blue skies out. A lot of times I'll climb underneath it looking up through the tree, and I can almost guarantee you if you have one of these and you have not pruned it for a while, getting underneath it and just getting all of the dead wood out. It's not a disease, there's not something wrong with it, but a lot of that growth, shades, it just keeps growing on itself year after year, and all that underwood gets shaded out. It's naturally going to turn like a gray or a beige color. A lot of times when you get pruners, you can get your gloves on, just reach up there, it'll snap out. And I have a lot of people come back and said, I did what you told me to, I got all the dead wood out of there, and I stood back and said my problem is fixed. Because that's what gives us this heavy, congested, no air, no sun if we have all that dead wood underneath. There's two down the road here that I'm going to stop on the way home from work one of these days and just knock on her door like, do you mind if I just... Yeah, anyway, I'll fix that thing for me. I should say I took a picture of it from my bad pruning article last year, so there you go. So the lace leaf maple's one. If we're going with trees, I don't really care if you do it in spring, summer, fall. I wouldn't do anything in the fall, but say spring, summer, or winter. Now typically for me, it's easy to see things without leaves. So if I have an old tree, I'm going to visit it at some point during the dormant season. And with maple, I probably try to shy people towards the end of winter. So if I was out there in February, early March, before it breaks bud, I can look at the structure and say, oh, I got a bad branch, I got something broken, I need to get it shaped a little bit. Okay, in the summer is when I would thin. So I can walk out here in June after all these leaves come out for the season and go, okay, that's way too much. I'm too thick. I want an open, airy tree. It's up to you what you want, but I would rather see the silhouette, a little bit of sun. The garden underneath it's going to get more light, but I can thin very easily anytime June, July. Those are my 2 months I'll usually try to get out and go up into the crown. And if I needed to, I mean, you know, everybody knows maple's not a tree that I have a big central leader. We're not going to ruin a Japanese maple by taking it back a little bit. I try not to. I'd rather have it get its own vase shape, but thinning it out, or if I was going to head it back a bit, that would be to me kind of an early summer thing. Okay, we can get it done a little easier right then. All right. Now feeding, I brought in, we put this on special for the class. This is the same thing I'm using these days. So this is an organic tree shrub food. Maple doesn't need a lot of phosphorus, a lot of potassium. We just need a little nitrogen, okay? I don't know about you, but I'd rather have slow and steady. I don't need 3 foot of stringy growth that you're gonna come and ask me how to prune it because it doesn't look good. We want slow and steady. So if I walk out every March and I feed my old tree, whether it's in a pot or the ground, with tree shrub food, I've got nice gentle feeding. I don't ever hardly go more than that one time a year. If something's struggling, maybe I really pruned it hard, or I'm going to in that summer, then I would do one more dose in June. Typically the feeding in March gives me foliage. The feeding in June builds caliper. So if I want thicker branches, maybe that maple on a rainy spring day had so many leaves, and when it got wet with rain, it was almost hanging back to the ground. Has that happened to a couple people? It's happened to me. So it's like, okay, A, I need to thin that, and B, if I skip the March food, maybe I do it in the summer and I'll build some more caliper and have a little tidier specimen. Okay, is that making sense? So we don't need anything liquefied. We don't need crazy time release. We don't want liquid steroids on it. We want slow and steady. The growers put too much food on a lot of our trees and they grow fast, fast, fast. When you get it to the yard, it really does slow down and start to do what you want, okay? So just those little bit of feeding with the tree shrub. And like I said, that'll be on special for the class today too, 20% off. We have big bags. If you got a few maples like me, you'll need a big bag, all right? So we'll do one more question and we'll do them at the end, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll wait till the end.
Okay, go ahead and go to the end here. All right, so we got prune. I think we got all that. Now I mentioned verticillium wilt disease. The only other really thing I see on maples around here is black wood. Has anyone had black wood on their maples? And typically it's more coral bark probably than any other variety, but it's what we call pseudomonas. So if I have an old tree in the wet spring, some varieties might get a little touch of black wood towards the tips of the growth. It's very easy to see it. Coral bark, like I said, is probably the most common one I see it on. That's something we can prune out right away, and if we spray with something natural like copper, that's a great fungicide to use on disease, on a lot of things, and specifically on maples as well. Okay, so if we're going to spray our maple to protect it in the winter, or we watch it in spring and I saw a little bit of black and I pruned it out, I probably would get a little bit of copper fungicide, just spray it once, walk away, you're good to go. Okay, easy on that. Now, insects is a little more interesting one. I don't know what it is this year, but who's seen more aphids in the last week than I've ever seen before? I'll raise my hand. That's here at the nursery and at home. For some reason, they are on everything right now. I found them on hydrangeas, on maples, on just about anything around the property, and at my house too. So the one trick with maples is don't ever get anything crazy, systemic, harsh chemical. You're going to burn your tree, to be brutally honest. If we want to spray a maple for something simple like aphids, or we have other insects down the road, it's mainly going to be aphids. There's not a lot of stuff gets on maples. We get something safe for vegetables. That's always my rule. So if I'm going to spray my Fire Glow maple, it's got a little bit of aphids on the new growth, and I can't simply grab my hose. This is what we do here. We wash them off. They don't have sugar to suck on. They're done. That's an easy way to just gently wash them off here if you find them. If you walk out and you have a zillion of them and we do have to spray, get insecticidal soap. Get something very mild. If I put neem oil on a maple, I'm going to burn it. If I put something systemic on a maple, I'm going to burn it. So we want to use something very gentle and just minimal. We don't need a lot. We do it early in the day or on an overcast day, hopefully not on a very sunny day, to make sure, again, we keep the foliage looking sharp. All right? So how about, anybody got questions so far? Because we're going fast and furious today with all these trees to look at. So that's a lot of growing information. You got a question? Yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
you were
Rock.
talking about insecticidal soap.
Yep.
Simple Green. I've used that for years.
Simple Green. Yeah.
That's probably one of the best insecticidal soaps.
Little natural ones. Yeah, we carry a lot of different options in there. Again, if you look at the label, just find something safe for vegetables. Yeah, you had one, but you got a question? You had one too.
Yeah, it's just about the watering.
Yeah.
I've heard pros and cons of both times to do it. I'm just wondering how you feel about it. And that is it better to get them water in the morning, because that's how I've got it,
Yep. Yeah.
rather than the evening?
Yep. Always better to water in the morning, and that's especially if we got sprinkler systems. I don't want water sitting on foliage as much as possible. So it drains through during the day a little bit better. It dries off when the sun comes out. But especially with foliage plants, I would always water early in the morning is much better than doing it in the evening for
So
sure.
that soap insecticide, when should you do that?
So that would be early, first thing in the morning. If I'm going to spray a maple, or frankly, when I spray anything, it's at the crack of dawn. I'm up really early, or again, I can do that late in the evening. I don't have a problem with that as well. But I'm going to do it one or the other. I'm going to avoid, now that we're getting sun and warmth, don't want to do a lot of spraying out midday. Weeds, yes. Let's classify that differently. But bugs, disease, all that stuff, I want to do it when it's a little more mild. Especially now, frankly, the bees are out. And whether I buy the most natural thing on earth, if I spray my bees with neem oil, I've killed them just the same as if I used a murder, death, kill. So I want to get out early when the bees aren't active, especially with flowering stuff, and then the same thing in the evening. Once they've gone back to the hive, I'm going to be much safer without doing any damage to bees. The natural stuff has no residual that's ever going to hurt a pollinator. It's when we get it right on them, or we use a chemical, then the residual will get them later. Okay? All right. So one big thing here, like I mentioned before, is I kind of smile. Who's got lots of pots behind their house? Who has lots of pots at their house? I probably can't count how many pots I have scattered all over the place in the landscape, the patio, the entryway, everywhere. So people tend to have pots, or maybe they're out of room. Maples are a great choice to grow in a container, and I do a lot of them in pots. I volunteer a lot at the Arboretum down in North Everett, so typically I'll grow it for 10 years and go, yeah, it's really nice now, and I don't really have any room for it, so I'll take it down there and plant it, so they keep it in the garden down there. I could also root prune. I can do this. We had one gentleman emailed, I think overnight, about root pruning his container. Is that person here today? All right, so you got it. I sent you a long email on it too. Okay. But it's a great question, because this is what I do. I go buy a really nice pot, make the wife not so happy, and I bring home another tree. So I put it in the container. I'm always going to get a quality soil. I should make you repeat after me. Do not go buy Miracle Grow crap from Costco. You will kill your maple with Miracle Grow. That stuff just holds too much moisture. We want something really well drained for the same reason as we want it in our yard. So in organic potting soil, you'll see two here. I would never be upset if you used Edna's Best, the yellow bag. That's the same one we've had here literally for decades. I've been selling Edna's Best for 30 years between whites and this place. This is brand new. So we've had a lot of people request an organic potting soil that has no peat moss in it, okay? So we call this Earth First. So no peat in there, which means no peat bogs get destroyed. And if our fine president continues his tariff war, you won't have to pay 20% more for your peat moss out of Canada, right? So the Earth First is a substitute. I've used both. I have this in my house right now to even put my flowers in. This is all-purpose potting soil. I think it has a great feel. I think if you tried it out, you'd really like it. It's the same price. It's not any extra. But either one of those is fabulous. I always have compost around the house, the same company, EV Stone. So when I'm planting a maple, I will typically take majority potting soil, but I always take a couple heaping handfuls of compost to mix in there, and then I will usually use an inch or so of pure compost as a mulch when I'm all done, okay? I think it looks nicer. I'm a little OCD, so I don't like to look at the perlite and the pumice. I just want nice compost at the top of the pot. So great draining soils, phase one, and get a decent sized container. I mean, if I go buy a gallon maple, and I buy a pot that's that big, sure, it'll grow. Anything grows in a pot, but you're going to do this again in a year or two, and then again in a year or two. So I'm not saying go buy a whiskey barrel for a gallon maple, but you can kind of get into my problem as we cycle the small one to this pot, and that one goes to the bigger pot, and then I go buy a new one for the small pot, see? So we can try out a new one that way. But, you know, as a general rule, if I'm buying a container maple, and I'm not going to say, I do a lot of gallons too. I'm not going to get a huge pot for a gallon. It might be something 12, maybe 16 inches would last me for quite a few years before I got to go up again. But if I'm buying something for me, I typically buy some at least 2 feet by 2 feet. Big, thick wall ceramic. I never have to worry about wintertime damage, cracking, freezing, plants, all the rest of it. And if I buy a 2 or a 5 gallon maple, and that's a bigger plant, and I put it in there, I usually get 8, 9, 10 years before I have to worry about it, okay? And now at that point, we go back to his question. What do I do if I have old maples and I'm an addict like Trevor and I have to move my trees around? Can I keep it there longer? Yes, I can by root pruning. And when I pull it out, it's always going to be in the winter. I'd really hesitate to do this during the growing season, but I've got, say, Thanksgiving to about the 1st of March. I learned a long time ago, now I don't buy cute pots that have little vase shapes because they look great. Then I have to choose. The tree goes or the pot gets cracked because I'm never getting it back out of there again. So everything is belly pot to me, or egg pot shaped. Easy to slide things in, easy to put them back again. So if I slide it out of there, I'm not grabbing a shovel and destroying the root ball. It's not that. I'm going to carefully lay it on its side, and I will kind of scratch and prune, and I could probably get rid of, you know, a good 2-3 inches on both sides, and I could probably sever off 3 or 4 inches off the bottom. You're going to find a thicker mat right there. I put some fresh soil back in, pack it in there, give it some food, off we go. You know, I bought myself a few more years that way.
So you put the food inside the soil or on top?
What's that?
You put the food inside the soil?
Well, I think if in a container, and the soil for that matter, I would always, if I'm planting one, I'm going to do a little bit of the bottom and a little bit at the top. If I'm moving something, repotting and all the rest of it, just do it on the top. You can do that, put a little compost over it. As you water that through the season, it just keeps sending that fertilizer to the root system, okay? Yes?
What can you use, like any kind of pots? Because there's plastic, there's the styrofoam type one.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt the tree. Plastic's not going to last forever. I mean, the lightweight stuff's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. No terracotta. It disintegrates in the winter. You're not going to have much luck with terracotta up here. But again, if I'm buying you know, I've had pots for 30 years that I probably will have, my kids will have when I'm dead, buried 30 years from now. So, I mean, if I buy a frost-proof pot, and that's what we specialize in here, and they're half price every day. The sale doesn't end. We sell them on whatever they're marked, they're all half price. Because we would rather have you get a high-quality, high-fired, thick glazed pottery from Vietnam, not China. Some of the glaze and the clays are different. It'll still crack in the winter, but Vietnam, it specifically will give you the superior length. Yeah, as long as I don't really drop it or break it with something, you'll have it forever. It's never going to freeze and crack. Okay. All right, so I'll let you look at options, but again, if we talked about in ground, we talked about containers. If I'm doing a maple in a container, look at your sun. I have a lot of spots that get 0 that I'll tuck a little pot in, and I can find really fun variegated pinks and whites and other reticulated foliages. If I had that sun, it would burn, especially in a container. So if I have heat, we get these. If I have half and half, we get those. If I have shade, I'm going to show you some other ones that we could do in pretty much total shade, okay? Now, we're going to start looking through a bunch of trees here, but again, if we just go through kind of the second page there, lace leaf, shrub, uprights, full moons, maples for shade, I've got examples of all those up here. But when we talk lace leaf maples, again, I brought up Autos Dissectum. This is one called Orangeola in the front. Now, I have a bunch of red, I got a bunch of green. It's not that I don't like them because I didn't bring them in here, but I think a lot of people that buy lace leaf maples go for one of those two. I have Hot Sun, you know, get me Red Dragon, get me Crimson Queen, get me something that'll take the heat, and I have no problem with that at all because we got a lot of green around here, and something red really pops in the landscape during the growing season, okay? I brought these in to kind of show you a different way. If I want a bunch of different colors going, I'm going to look for some of these other flavors. Orangeola, you can see, has a lot of red, but it's not red or purple red like some of the other trees. That's going to have orangey red. If I saw that in summer, I would see green underneath with brighter orangey red new growth. and I would see a different fall color again, going into the spring. Otto's is one that was really almost orangey bronze, then it goes to a little green with, again, that color on the new growth. We get to fall, I love orange, that one turns a brilliant pumpkin orange color, so totally different. Green ones will usually go to yellow, but again, I can pick varieties that might give me yellow with a little red or a little green. And our dark red leafed ones are always going to go scarlet, you know, really bright red scarlet. There's nothing wrong with any of them, but if you're looking at adding one in there, say, what do I have around it? I got a lot of green. Okay, the red one might be the one for you, okay? Maybe it's the opposite. You've got some different colors in that spot in the yard. Maybe a combination of the greens and the reds, a little different colors might pop a little better for you, okay? All the lace leaves, well, I shouldn't say all. There's a couple smaller ones we carry called Baby Lace and Ashes Scarlet Princess. Those will be probably a notch down as far as size. But it doesn't matter which one of these I pick. People come in all the time and ask for, I want the little dwarf lace leaf maple that only grows like 2 feet tall. That's pruning, that's not a variety, okay? So I just don't let it continue to do this year after year. If I let any lace leaf maple go, I will end up with a plant probably as tall as me or even a little taller and much wider, okay? So there are some that are a little bit smaller, but pay attention to the variety you pick, because sometimes it's, I only got a little 4-foot circle, okay? We probably need to get a smaller variety. These should have, you know, long term, probably a good 6-8 foot circle to grow in and really attain the beautiful shape they have, okay? If I continually hack it back, is it the end of the world? No, but it's probably not going to have that shape that you see when you look at magazines and arboretums and gardens that have them trained out, because it's a magnificent tree if we give it some good pruning and some room to grow, okay? Now there's lots of shrubby maples. Here's one example. This is Kiyohime, or Murasaki Kiyohime. You can see some beautiful spring growth color. Nice little kind of lipstick edge on green. You know, this is the opposite. This is, I mean, not that I would never use my hedge clippers, but I've seen some people maybe do that on a shrub maple. This is not going to weep. It's not about the character of a lace leaf. It's going to be a thick, twiggy shrub. So I might end up like chest level with a big, wide shrub-looking maple. Okay, a little bit different style of growth out. All right. Now I think we've seen a whole bunch of upright trees. I brought a couple in here. This is pine bark, the green one. Okay, and there's a beautiful bright. Can you see the orange red in here? Isn't that spectacular? So that's one called First Flame. Now those are two examples of probably 30 we carry that I'm going to have a tree. You know, whether it's 10 foot, 12 foot, 15 foot, 20 foot, 25 foot even, we have options for red, for green, different fall colors, different spring color. But I'm going to have a tree specimen. I'm not going to be able to prune that tree into a 6-foot shrub. It's just not going to happen. We would say, I like that color. Let's get a different variety that would be similar to that just doesn't get as big, okay? So lots of upright trees. Probably, again, the most common stuff I see driving around and a lot of customers ask for, they want the red. You know, we have so much green, the Douglas firs, the western red cedars, all the hedges, the rhodies, everything green. What could I put in as a specimen in my landscape, whether it's, again, 12 or 15 or whatever height you want, that's got that bright red color, because it really does pop during the growing season. So if we're going to look at reds like this right here, okay, so this is the shorter version. We call that Fire Glow. That's probably the best-selling Japanese maple ever. I mean, it really is. And most people don't have room for a giant one. They want the red. You know, that's a tree we could keep in that 12, maybe 15-foot range, full grown. So nice mushroom shape. I would call that a dwarf. You know, there's a good relative term for you. But that's going to be our smallest tree with red. If I wanted to go up to maybe 18 or 20 feet, I would buy one called Emperor 1. Okay, that's another great red. It's almost the same leaf, just a little bigger. If I really wanted to go big, we go Bloodgood. You know, and there's some other ones like that too, but Bloodgood's our traditional one that I want a 25-foot, almost shade tree size with Japanese maple. Okay, those are the three typically we do for red. And again, lots of green ones as well. You know, this is, like I mentioned, this we call Arakawa, or the pine bark maple, or rough bark maple. You come up and pet it after class. If you touch the trunk, you'd be like, well, that's weird. It literally has corrugated pine bark with the Japanese maple foliage. Really, really cool plant, for especially in the wintertime. So that's going to be the same, 20 feet by 20 feet, big, massive specimen maple, beautiful green during the season, and then it's like I plugged it in like a fire engine red-orange in the fall, okay? So great fall color on that. So there's just a couple examples of uprights. Now I brought one in, where did I hide it? There, I hid it. Because we do quite a few of this style of maple. Has anyone seen these? I'll hide behind it. So that is some spectacular color, okay? So this is an example. Every other tree up here we have is Acer palmatum, okay? Japanese maple, that's our traditional species. This is what we call full moon maple, still Japanese maple, but we have Japonicums and we have Shirawasawanum. That's a tough one to say. So those are two different ones, and what's the difference if I look at that? That almost looks like our native vine maple, right? It's got the same size leaf, it's not quite as cut as Japanese maple. It's still equally as interesting, but that's an example of a full moon maple. If we go out there and look at Japonicum, like I have one in my yard called Ed Wood, I've got huge, almost tropical foliage with a lot of character to it, and again, a lot of fall color on those. They tend to be maybe a little bigger, but there are dwarf ones of both of those. I always bring this one in because we call this golden full moon maple. Has anyone got a golden full moon maple? Yeah. That's one of the all-time favorites around here. Again, if we have shade, if I have a tree yard with trees limbed up, I could use that as an unbelievable understory tree because it just glows bright yellow all through the season and then turns orange and red in the fall. So I want a large tree underneath something. If I put this out in the southwest corner of my yard in full sun, it's going to look great in spring till about midsummer, and then it's going to start to get brown because it gets sunburned. I'm not going to kill it, but I don't think anybody wants to look at sunburned tree every year in their yard. So give that one shade. There's other ones in the full moon we can do sun with. So just ask if you like the idea of a different leaf, and we would have some different options for you. Okay. Then we got maples for shade. So there's a lot. Let's just say this. I could plant any of these Japanese maples in part sun, part shade. Okay. If I choose a red one and I put it in shade, I'm going to lose a little bit of the red. It's not the end of the world. It's going to leaf out red, but I get to summer and it's going to look green with red. It's not going to have the crisp color that it would in sun. Does that make sense? If I have the opposite, we talked about golden full moon, things with white, things with variegation. I want those in that morning sun only or shade, because if I put them out in afternoon sun, we're going to get a little bit of sunburn, okay? But any of this stuff up here, if I've got the half and half, I can get away with the majority of all of these in either location. I just got to be careful with the afternoon, again, on the variegated stuff. If I look at, just to give you an example of two here, ooh, let's pull out the new one. That's cool. So this is a new one we got called Strawberry Spring. Can you see that leaf? Everyone kind of see? So this is what we call reticulated. It's almost like an art piece. If I look at that leaf, I've got traditional maple, but it's like somebody painted colors and veins on there. And if I have shade on that in the afternoon, that is all through the season. I've got great color before I turn for fall, okay? So reticulated maples like Strawberry Spring, or this is, I think this is Sister Ghost. Can you see how light that is, where I've almost got the white with lime green, dark green? That's spectacular foliage right there too. But we do quite a bit. If you want to look at one out there, I should have brought one in. One of the best maples on the property is one we call Mikazuki, or the crescent moon maple. And that has got pinks and reds and greens all blended together with that beautiful reticulated leaf. So maybe you have morning sun or shade, you might want to look at some of those reticulated ones because they really got sweet foliage. And again, different growth habits, different varieties. None of these are gigantic trees. Most of the reticulated stuff's going to be 8, 10, maybe 12 footish as they mature down the road. If I look at the other style, we would just call these variegated. So can you see that leaf? This is one called Butterfly. So I've got a little touch of pink, I've got some white, I've got that kind of blue-green color on this one, but this is not going to be striped or reticulated ever. I'm going to have random splashes of those 3 colors. Now this is one, again, I could have in that morning sun or a shade garden. This is also a great one for a pot, but that's one that we could grow, get a nice little upright tree without getting a gigantic 20-footer down the road, okay? Now the last group there, before I show you the rest, is Pacific Rim collection. Well, and I should add on to that too the Jack Frost collection. So one of my favorite nurseries down in Oregon, a place called Isley Nursery. A lot of the gardeners around here know that grower. They do some of the coolest conifers and maples in the entire world and ship to the entire world too. But they do a lot of their own breeding. So they've come up with a few different plants that are maybe a little different for some customers up here. This is an example of the Pacific Rim collection. So this is the one I pointed out with this orange color. That's First Flame, okay? So I don't know of any maple on the property. This has taken the place of everything as far as the most unbelievable spring color I've ever seen on a Japanese maple. That looks like fall in spring. If we were doing this in July, it would be green with those color tip growth on top, but it would be all green. Then we get to the fall, we go orange red and have the intense fall color as well. Again, that's a 20-foot by 20-foot maple down the road. That's not a little miniature thing, but a little bit bigger. But there's Final Fire. Close to that, you can guess Final Fire is probably what? The other half of that, the most unbelievable fall color you've ever seen. So those two kind of match the top. And then there's some other stuff. I thought I brought one in here. Where did I hide it? Probably hid it down in front where I can't see it.
What are you looking for?
Ice Dragon.
Here, that's right over here.
Is it the front there?
Over here.
It's over here.
Oh, is it on the side there? Ah, there it is. So this would be the Pacific Rim collection, or the Jack Frost collection, excuse me, version of lace leaf. Okay, I can see the similarity. This has got dissected foliage of these mounders, right? So what Isley did was take Acer palmatum and play with the seeds with Korean maple, Acer pseudoseboldianum. So now they've got a hardier tree. It doesn't matter to us, but I hate to say if you were in Eastern Washington or the Midwest, we couldn't have cool Japanese maples. We get a cold winter, they freeze out, they crash and burn. This opens the maple market up to a lot of people up in the foothills or even east of the mountains, where I can go down, you know, 10, 20 below zero on some of these plants, where I cannot do that on typical Japanese maple, okay? So Ice Dragon looks like a lace leaf, it smells like a lace leaf, but it's definitely different. This is a tree here, we would get 8 or 9 feet tall and have that weeping kind of gentle shape to it. So if I was looking for a specimen lace leaf, this has got great color, it's got cool bark even on it, but really good, and a nice fall color as well. But fabulous variety. That's called Ice Dragon. Okay. But take a look. You can, you know, again, we have all the information on our website. You're more than welcome to look on the Isley website. They have great information for consumers on there, where you can look at these two collections, look at other ones that grow as well, because we do get quite a few maples from them, not just those two collections. Okay. So let me go through, I'm just going to show you a couple others I brought in, and then we can do some questions. So we showed you a couple already. We'll move the pine bark out. We'll start going through and showing you a few more here. So this is kind of the new generation of maple. Can you see that leaf pretty well? So can you see that again is reticulated? I've got all kinds of interesting character on those leaves. I can see the veins, I can see the striping. I've got the two colors going. This is a new one the last few years called Blonde Beauty. So if I wanted a 10, 12 foot maple for a container down the road or in the garden that doesn't get the afternoon sun again, Blonde Beauty's got some sweet color. And that's one, again, in the fall, we're gonna go more like orangey gold, so a little different color in the fall as well. But that's got a really cool leaf. We got some nice specimens of Blonde Beauty out there. Again, towards the top of the spring list, is this beautiful thing. You can look at the color coming out on that. So this is a little smaller leafed one that gets nice and bushy and not super crazy big, but again, maybe 10 or 12 feet. This is one called Bonfire. So I've got great spring color. Again, in the summertime, a little more green with tip color. And then the fall, the reason why they call it Bonfire in the fall, this one really does light up pretty well for fall color too. But that's, again, not a huge grower. Another one we could actually probably do in a nice pot or a smaller spot in the landscape, okay? Bring both these up. Now, anybody got coral bark maple? We got a few? So it's a great tree. I think we would all agree there's probably no better one for winter interest in the Japanese maples of coral bark. I've always got the bright coral colored wood. The newest growth is always the brightest for 3 years. You get an older tree, I'm gonna have a grayish trunk, gray in the center, and then more intense color towards the tips, okay? What I always bring some coral barks in because I love the tree. I think people sometimes maybe pick the wrong coral bark. So how much room do you have is always the question. And these days, the traditional one was always one called Sengu Kaku. You know, that's a 25-foot tree. I've seen a couple even bigger than that in old gardens around, but that's a big plant. And some people that don't have room, don't go buy Sengu Kaku, ask for a dwarf one, because there's a lot of good dwarfs these days that just don't get as big. So if I go Sengu Kaku 25 feet, I could go Benikawa is another one, maybe 15, 18 feet. I could go down again to some things like this. So this is one called Baton Rouge, a new cultivar, maybe 10 or 12 feet, okay? I can do, this got a great name called Gold Digger. So this one here, even some yellow with the coral on it. I think it's got a little more colorful foliage to it. And again, smaller scale, okay? We have other ones out there like Corvallis Broom. That's a bushy coral bark, might get 6-8 feet tall is all. We get this one's got an easy name to remember. This one's called Little Sengu. So we have that out there. If I want to, again, a miniature Sengu Kaku, I like the bark, I like the tree, I just don't have room for a giant one. Those are all better for the containers, or again, for smaller spots in the landscape. We just don't have quite as much room, okay? So lots of different coral barks out there. If we look at, this is still probably one of my all-time favorite maples. It's been around forever, and it still catches my eye every year. You know, this is one that started my plant addiction many moons ago. This is one we call Shindis Hojo, okay? So Des Hojo is an old maple. The Shin in Japanese means improved, although I know Robert likes his old Des Hojo, and I don't think one's better than another, but this is the one we find these days. So this is one here. If I looked at it now, I wouldn't even look like the same tree as I would in June or July, and it wouldn't look like the same tree again in the fall at all, okay? This leafs out like a fuchsia red. If we came back and visited this in summer, it's more green with light variegation with the fuchsia red tips. And then we get to fall and it turns scarlet. So I mean, it really looks like 3 different trees in 3 different seasons. We have probably the nicest one of these I've ever seen down at the Arboretum there at Legion Park in Everett that I helped take care of. It's been there a long time, and that's about as big as I've seen, maybe 15-ish foot tall. This is one I'd expect to stay a little bit smaller than that in a reasonable amount of time. It's not a gigantic tree by any means, okay? So that's Shindis Hojo. What other kind of treasures? We talked about that one. Ah, here's a good one here. So look at the color of that, the texture of that. So these are what we call strap leaf or linear lobum maples. They almost resemble bamboo a little bit. I get a little texture to them, a little bit different. We can get red, we can get green again. We've got a few different cultivars. This is a great one called Kinshi, which is like golden harp string. So this one, bright green, turns bright gold in the fall. We get probably the all-time favorite around here is one called Koto no Ito. Okay, and same thing, same look as this, just maybe a little bit bigger grower, okay? But look at the strap leaf. If that leaf catches your eye, I'm always gonna have kind of 2 different leaves, old foliage is going to be more narrow, you know, finger-like. You'll see the new growth be a little bit more like regular Japanese maple, so it's kind of a fun tree with two different foliages and a great texture, a little bit different tree. So that's one called Kinshi with the K. We looked at, I'm going to unbury myself here if I keep going, right? Now, we get a lot of gallons in. You know, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I like playing with my maples. So I save a little money. I buy gallons a lot of times to try something out so I can play with it, prune it how I want it to be pruned, and grow it from there, okay? So we got a massive selection of gallons right now, and those don't last long. If you want some gallons, grab them pretty quick, because that's not something I can replace like I can sometimes on the larger ones. But you'll see a huge variety. If I look at that gallon table, I see every color in the rainbow, from reticulated, variegated, red, green, yellow, orange, everything is in there. But here's just a few. We looked at strawberry spring, that's that pink variegated one. If I was looking to grow one in a pot or even bonsai, this is Akita Yatsubusa, tiny little leaf. This might get 3 feet by 2 feet. I mean, that's a small Japanese maple that we can play with in a pot, okay? There's a red one I can do in a pot or a small garden. I have this in a big old pot in my sunny garden. Being red, it'll take the heat, but this also might get 6 feet. You know, that's a small, bushy, upright maple. It's not going to turn into a gigantic tree down the road, okay? Maybe I like a little spring color. This one's easy to remember. Orange Dream, okay? Leaves out bright orange. I get some lime green, some gold. And this one has to be out of afternoon sun. Every time I see one of those getting afternoon sun, you're going to get some sunburn in the summertime. So that's a great morning sun, afternoon shade for either a pot or the yard. Again, not a 20-foot tree, but a 10 or a 12-foot specimen. A little bit smaller, more easy to take care of, okay? Absolutely love this guy, okay? Look at that. That's got some sweet leaves, got great character. So this is what we call red lion's head maple. Okay, this is a little different. This is Kurenai Jishi. So a lion's head type, but with the red foliage. So it'll take sun, very slow growing, not super wide, but kind of an upright small tree. But it's got some really cool color, I think. We get a lot of these in, because this is one I think a lot of customers like for pots or a small specimen in their sunny garden, okay? What else we brought up? I brought up too many here today. There's another new one that caught my eye last year, so we got it again. This is a great little texture one. You can see the difference, the green stem, nice little color on the leaves. This is one called Orion. So again, dwarf, shrubby style, manageable for the garden or a container. This is one here I don't think I'd ever expect to get more than 6 feet tall. You know, very, very small for a Japanese maple tree, okay? We showed you the butterfly. That's a great variegated one, but we got lots of other variegateds out there. Maybe you're like me and pink's not your favorite. We can get different colors. Maybe we like a little pink. We got other ones out there that have way more pink than that. So I mean, you can really pick how much variegation you want on those, okay? This is another one of my all-time favorites. And another one a lot of the customers like around here, because again, beautiful leaf. I mean, look at that, dark, bright red with the green veins. So this is one, the Americans renamed this, they call it Ruby Stars. It's also, traditional name's Beni Hashi. So this is another straight from Japan. But I think for a small red tree container, you're not going to have many that'll beat this one. We get this in gallon, 2s, 5s. I got big ones, because this has been a really popular one around here for our customers. I think the combination of the foliage, the tidy growth habit, and again, having some red that'll take some sun, that's a great maple to think about too.
How tall?
That one, maybe 10-ish. When we get a really old one, that'll be a long time. Yeah, those are pretty slow.
What was the rename of that one?
So that's Ruby Stars. Yeah, or I think on my list, I think I stick with the traditional name. They also call it Beni Hashi. Yeah, with an H, okay? We got a few more here. Now, this is probably the most interesting variegated maple I've ever found. So this is called Manyo no Sato. And can you see the difference with this variegation I put lime green on purple. There's no other maple like this that I've found. These are hard to come by. We get a few every year. I think I might have 5 out there. But if I want something unique, I think that's towards the top of the totem pole. Easy one to grow. Again, it's not super big. What do they have this rated at here for height? About 8 by 4. You know, maybe a little bigger than that with age. But it's really got some cool leaves. I could have a little bit of sun on this one. I don't have to have this in shade, because if I have some sun, I'm going to keep that burgundy with that lime variegation line in between it, okay? So that's Manyo no Sato. Now this is another great dwarf one. This is, we call eagle claw or kamagata. So the maples are a little more claw-like, and you see the little foliage, a little bit different texture. It's got nice little tip color in spring. This is another one that doesn't get super large. I've seen these in old gardens that might be 10-ish foot with huge trunks. So kind of a small tree. I could have this in sun, or I could have this in part shade as well. This would be another one I think could grow in a pot for a long period of time too. Okay? That's Kamagata. We'll get to the last couple here. So, some people think we're growing marijuana sometimes. This one doesn't look like it too bad, but this is probably the quintessential Japanese maple. People that come in here year after year, they're like, you know, I want that cool horizontal branching. I want easy. I could grow this in a pot, the ground. This is, I think, towards the top of the list for a lot of reasons. This is Macawa Yatsubusa. We go through a lot of these every year. I don't have many small ones. We'll get more. This is a popular purchase. A lot of customers like a little starter plant. They can watch it grow and mature. This is like a shrub. So I might get about as big as me, maybe a little wider, but it's very horizontal and branching as a shrub. I think it's got great bark, unbelievable fall color. It's always this bright lime green. When we get to summer, I always call them helicopters. You can call them helicopters. But we get our little sumera, the seeds on the maples. So this is like lipstick red seed with lime green foliage. Really showy plant, I think, during the summer season too. So if you're gonna try one, a lot of people bonsai these as well. That's a really fun variety to try out, the Macawa Yatsubusa.
Do you carry variants of those?
We do. I don't. Mini maple is the one everybody wants. I have my name on a list to get more. We have bonsais of them out here, but I don't have the plants. I don't know when they're going to give us more. But all the maples are grafted, okay? Everyone know when I say that? All these varieties are grafted. But when we get to Macawa, they actually collect seeds and grow these from a seed to get mini maple. They take forever. I have a mini maple I've had for almost 20 years. It's in a pot about this big still, and my plant is barely taller than this and about that wide, okay? So really, really slow, but something, again, bonsai, container grow, or the environment. If you want to hang out for mini maple, I cannot tell you when they'll give me more. That's an Isley plant. They have the patent on it. I have my name on the list for 100 whenever they give them up again. Last time we got 100, I think they lasted 2 weeks. We call the want book. Oh yeah, I still want one, and then they're gone. So leave your name, because you'll get the first crack at it if you want to try one, okay? But try Macawa would be a great little one to try for quite a few reasons.
And they can handle the hot afternoon sun?
Macawa, I try to keep half and half again. Yeah, and the seedlings the same way. I've got my mini maple collection tucked underneath a huge Tuolumne's Red Sentinel. It gets a little bit of sun, a couple hours in the afternoon, that's plenty. I don't need it all day long. Got to keep it happy, okay? So we looked at that. We talked about fire glow. We've got like 2 left here. This is a fun one here. Now that's the pink, okay? This one's got a great name, Geisha Wild. Okay? That's been a popular one here. We got a zillion of them in right now, gallon and some bigger ones, because this is one kind of like the other that everybody always asks for. So if I have, this is one of the few variegated ones that I'd say you could put out in some sun, because it's not white. I'm gonna have dark burgundy, hot pink, and kind of a red mixture. If I put this in shade, it will grow great, and I'll have more green with light pink and white mixed in. So I can almost pick either or. But I've done this in my own yard and sun. It's perfectly fine, but it's heavy on the pink. If you like pink, really heavy variegated maple, that may be one to give a try. It's not, again, a super huge tree. I think they've got these at probably 8 feet. Yeah, 6-8 feet tall, 6-8 feet wide. So not a giant monster, but it also, you could say you have a Geisha Wild, right? That's a fun name for the maple. Okay, we got a couple more here. Let's just get them all up here. Sorry, buddy. There's the unique one right there. Okay. So this is what we saw the red, right? Red lion's head Kuronijishi. This is what we call Shishi Gashira. This is the traditional lion's head maple or lion's head maple. So I have one of these in my backyard. I've had for years. Monster trunk. Might be up 10 or 12 feet now. It'll keep growing. I've seen these pretty good substantial size that are really old, but it's very prunable. It's not one of these maples where I get all this crazy growth. Very slow and steady. So if I look at that leaf, kind of clumpy foliage, interesting texture, a little bit different than a lot of the trees we've looked at, and super intense fall color too. That's a great one for fall. But if I need a crisp green, something with a little more upright shape, and kind of, again, that clumpy texture on the foliage, maybe try a Shishi Gashira. That'd be a little bigger tree down the road, but we do have some nice ones of those around right now too. That's the Shishi. Someone's gonna have to pull me over the table here now. Okay, last couple. Now, I brought this an example of spring maple, okay? This is one called Coral Magic. Can you see the leaf on that? I mean, that is absolutely spectacular. So I've got Johnny's Pink. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7 others out there that look very close to this. But this, to me, is the reason maple's the tree for all seasons. I could pick something out like that. That might look prettier now than it even does in the fall. And they all look great in the fall. So if I really want spring color, this is the time of year to walk out there and look and say, yeah, that's what I like. I get this for a few weeks. Then again, if I walk this in summer, I'd be green with a little bit of color on the new growth. Then I get to fall and I get a whole nother color. So I mean, it really is a way to get something that looks different in all 3 seasons, okay? So that's Coral Magic. This is one we would put, again, morning sun, afternoon shade is going to be the best spot for a lot of these peachy, pinky growers here for spring color, okay? All right, now I gotta leave him up because I won't be able to stand. Okay, the last one here is very different. Can you see that? So this is one we call Reusai or Reusai. So that's R-Y, Reusai or Reusai. Now, when this came out, I'll be honest with you, I was like, that doesn't do anything for me. And now I've played with it a little bit, and it's a very unique maple. I got a buddy that had an arbor going into his backyard, right? So he's like, I don't like vines. I want to do something on there that looks cool. So we bought one of these. We simply take these upper branches, we train it up over the arbor, and it weeps down like a vine does, but it's a Japanese maple. The fall color is spectacular. So this is a weeping like a lace leaf, but I don't have lace leaf foliage on that. That's a very different plant. We can get these even red now too. It's one called Dragon Tears with the red leaf. So if you wanted to play with something fun, I mean, I could take this. This is it for height. I could just let it do that, hang down, give me the structure I want. If I want to take a branch, I could stake this up as high as I want to go and let it fall down. I mean, it's really kind of a different way to grow Japanese maples. When these came out a number of years ago, again, I looked at it like, I don't know, I'd rather have a lace leaf maple. But now that I've played around with it a little bit, I think there's some different things you can do with these that are really fun in the garden for sure, okay? So that's Reusai.
So how big do they get?
So again, that's why the weeping stuff, I hate to give you a height because it's really going to be up to what you want to do on it. If I don't stake this, that's it. I mean, I don't have any more height than that, and I'm going to grow side to side and start sprawling out. If I wanted to, I would recommend getting a little bit stake on it to get it up taller. We have taller ones back there too. Then I can start up a little bit and have a little more character to it. But anything weeping like that's totally going to be on how you want to train it, or on how you want to kind of do it in your own yard. Okay. So that's where you sin. All right, now I'm trapped for sure. I can spend the rest of the day in here now, amongst the maples. So that's a lot of trees, and again, that's probably like a quarter of what we have in inventory. I try to pick out some different ones every year to show you guys. I'd invite you to look around. All you gotta do is tell me about the class. If it's today, great. It can be all week. You got till Friday. Like I mentioned earlier, the Superior Organic Japanese Maple Fertilizer, 20% off. You can use this on a lot of other stuff in your yard too. And then all the maples, 20% off. So if you're gonna do some maple shopping, try to do it this week. Save you a big chunk of change on a lot of the maples out there, okay? So gallons, 2s, 5s, lace leaf, full moon, they're everywhere. And it doesn't matter what size it is, you can still get the discount. Yes?
Any of the Pacific Rims work in containers?
Oh yeah, I'd say for sure. Well, the Pacific Rim, there's 3 in particular, so I didn't bring one in, but look at Wabi Sabi.
That's the one I wanted to see.
That's got a great name too, but that's their lace leaf versions with a little bit higher structure, really cool color on it.
So it'll mound
Down a little bit.
Okay.
Look at Origami. I only have one because I'm waiting for more, and it's expensive. It's a big one. But Origami they named because it literally looks like little paper cranes. I mean, the new leaves are like, I've never seen another maple like it. It's almost 3-dimensional, a little bit different on the new growth. And Ice Dragon for sure. You could do with the Jack Frost. Yeah. Rest of them will probably get a little bigger. I mean, again, we could all agree. I could grow any plant in a pot I want. Just how long do I want it in that pot's going to be the difference. So I could buy a massive container. I grow any of these in there for a long time. But typically, people are like me. I don't want to lift it once we get past a 24, maybe 30-inch pot. It gets a little heavy to start moving around all the time. That would get you your 10 years on it. Yes?
What other name was it for Crescent Moon?
So that's they call it Mikazuki with an M. Yeah, Mikazuki.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think there's a lot of really cool reticulated maples. The Ghost series, we looked at Sister. There's Uncle, there's Grandpa, there's Grandma, there's Baby, there's Fur, there's all kinds of ghost maples are a great example. But that, to me, would always set the standard probably for reticulated color. Yeah, there's some newer ones. I'm watching this one because this is brand new. I'll probably end up, don't tell my wife, I'll probably end up with one of those here. I know she teaches, so if I take it home on Wednesday, when I'm off, she won't know. Well, then she'll find it later.
20% off today.
Exactly.
Do you carry gallons of those Pacific Rim collection?
Okay, the only one they will give me in a gallon is this one. Okay, and it's very rare that they even give those up. I ask. The problem is there's so much demand. Everything they propagate goes straight into a 6 or a box. They don't even do them in a 3-gallon anymore. Ice Dragon, the first time I've had that in a 3-gallon for like 5 years, and they gave me a few of those this year. I think there's still a couple gallons of this one. The rest of them, I don't know they'll ever happen in gallons. It's always going to be a little bit bigger tree.
You know,
Yeah.
the Origami.
Well, that's the one specifically, that and Wabi Sabi, frankly. I've been saying, come on, man, you got to give up a few. What I'm hoping is, what usually happens with a grower is 1 year, somebody makes a mistake on the spreadsheet, and they're like, what the hell, we grafted 600 of those. We were only supposed to do 2. And then it's like, okay, you guys can have gallons, and that's when we snatch them up. Yeah, for sure. So I watch every week, praying, mini maple and the gallons, but one of these days we'll find them again. There you go. Yes?
Yeah, I had to have a bunch of trees cut down, and the stumps are there, and they're going to have to stay.
Uh-huh.
Can these be planted? It would have to be a full stump, but can they be planted by old tree stumps?
Oh yeah, as long, again, are we talking like Douglas fir, Western
fir.
red cedar, big stuff?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
as long as I can get some roots out of my way and get a pocket of soil, I can't just pinch it in with an old root mass and expect it to do very well. But if you could, I'd like to have one here. Dig around, maybe you got to cut a root or two out of your way. As long as I get a nice pocket to get it started, it's going to find its way for sure. And it won't mind the acidity, the bark content, all that stuff's fine with maple. Yeah. Yes.
we have a Via Toronto
Yeah.
that was in a container for years in Redmond.
Yep.
We moved to the Olympic Peninsula. We put it in our brand new yard.
Yep.
And 3 years later, it got hit with verticillium.
Okay.
So last year, we whacked off maybe a third of it.
Okay.
Our landscaper said, dig it out, put it in a pot, see what happens.
Yeah.
It did fine last year. It's leafed out beautifully this year.
Yep.
Is it worth spending the money for a nice pot, or is it still at risk?
No, if it's stopped and you've been another year since another chunk died back, you've got it out of that groundwater and you've probably stopped it.
Cool.
So I can't tell you without looking at it, but if I had one I was worried about coming back, look at the trunk.
Okay.
Because if I have verticillium that bad and it's through the entire tissue system, the trunk is probably fissured and maybe peeling a little bit. That's usually what I see with trees that get
I'll show you a
verticillium.
picture afterwards.
Yeah, shoot me a picture of it, we'll take a look. But if it, hopefully it stopped. I mean, if you had one branch go a year ago and this year it leafed out with no dieback, then you probably stopped it. Yeah, you probably stopped it. And I've seen it get stopped before. Yeah.
A little bit of follow-up. My clumsily split, and you had me wrap it.
Yeah.
And it says wrap it, remove it in May,
Yeah.
but then put it back again on November.
Well,
Once you,
is it healed up now, you think, a little bit?
I haven't opened it.
I'd open it up and look at it before I said get rid of it, because you might even, I don't know how bad it went split down, but if I can get that sealed up, you might even frankly get, like arborists will use literally, not all of them, you got to get one that's safe for trees, but get a lag bolt. You might even just put a bolt through there that you won't even see. It'll nut it off, and then when it grows, it'll grow right around it, you won't even know it's there. But that might really get you sealed back up, because I worry about splits. I mean, it's happened in my yard too. There's nothing we can do about it. Mother Nature, the wind, whatever it was, gets one once in a while. It happens here all the time. A tree falls over, it's like, oh yeah, I got to do something with that now.
So
But
if you got a tree, let's say you had a nice branch out
Yep.
here, but somehow, one way or another, got damaged and that went.
Yeah. We would go
What
back.
happens to the rest of it?
We would go back and clean that break up, hopefully let it callus over. I've never used pruning sealer, so I would never get paint and paint something on. You end up painting something bad in versus keeping something good out, kind of thing. So don't paint them. Tree wrap is what I sent him with, because that's a breathable barrier.
Well, that's what I do with mine.
Yeah, if I took landscape fabric and cut it into a strip like this, and just cut it into a strip like an ace bandage, there's your tree wrap. So I can just ace bandage up. It's a little bit of support, but it keeps the bugs from getting in there.
How do you leave it? How long do you leave it on?
Well, he's going to check it every year. I mean, I'm not leaving it on forever because I don't want it to grow into the bark. So I'll check it once a year, loosen it maybe a little bit. But once it's healed up, now we see how the crack was, and then we decide, do we need to get a bolt in there, or is it healed up, and off we go, kind of thing. Yep. All right. Well, yes, go ahead.
We have a Japanese maple that we suspect that we have the verticillin.
Okay.
We want to take it out of the ground before we
Okay.
have the pot. Should we do that now? Wait
Oh,
for winter?
if you lost a chunk of it already, I would get it out of the ground sooner than later. Has part of it died out already?
No, not really, but
Yeah.
just kind of, we do have the clay soil, so we
Okay.
gotta head it off.
Well, if it hasn't died back at all, I would take that back and say, if you can wait, do this next winter. Yeah, because it's not, verticillium is not going to get worse over now that we're drying out. It's a winter thing. So to me, if it shows up this time of year, that's damage from last winter. The water table came up and got it. But if you don't have dieback, I would try to wait until it goes dormant. One good hard frost in the fall, leaves are dropped. Now I'm going to have near 100% success digging something up and moving it. Yeah, make it a little easier. Yep. All right, well, appreciate you coming. Like I said, do some shopping. We got 20% off on the maples and the food if you need some food.